I'm still speechless. How on earth did I score a business class dessert in economy class? I promise you, I'll tell you everything that happened if you come with me to try out the Singapore Airlines 787 in economy class. In this video, we're going to be flying the red-eye from Colombo, Sri Lanka's business hub all the way to Singapore Changi Airport. We're going to take a comprehensive look at the product, in-flight offering, and explore what Singapore Airlines has to offer on this highly regional flight. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Our day begins here at Colombo's airport, located ironically enough nowhere near Colombo. Now, prior to 2023, the airport was known to have 3 security screenings before boarding your flight, 2 of which were before you had even checked in. This was largely due to Sri Lanka's civil war and the tumultuous era that the island endured. However, with things easing out in the country and tourists flocking back to the island, the process has become fairly streamlined down to 2 security checks. Okay, I guess going from 3 to 2 is not a huge improvement, but it is still something. Singapore Airlines connects Colombo with Singapore daily on its Boeing 787-10. I made sure to get to the airport well ahead of schedule because the last time I took this flight, I remember the line being freakishly long. For my sheer fortune though, today seemed like a quick and friendly affair. Bags dropped, boarding passes printed and secured in a matter of minutes. Sri Lanka's main international airport doesn't have a whole lot in terms of, well, anything really. There's a couple of duty-free shops, but it's legitimately no different to what you'd see on any tropical island international airport. Now, unlike in Melbourne, Colombo's main concourse facilitates the movement of both outbound and inbound passengers, so at its peak it can be a bit of a chaotic experience. Fortunately, no flights to Paris and Frankfurt tonight, and the Middle Eastern carriers don't operate for another couple of hours. That essentially means that for the next couple of hours, the only traffic that the airport deals with flies to Southeast Asia, and there actually aren't a whole lot of travelers heading to these destinations. Now, the holding rooms in Colombo are blocked off by security, so once you enter you can't exit without having to clear security again. The Wi-Fi doesn't reach this part of the terminal for some reason either. So if you don't like watching planes pull up, you're going to have to find another way to keep yourself entertained. Speaking of which, here comes the 787-10 bearing registration number 9 Victor Sierra Charlie Mike, pulling up to gate 7, fresh from Singapore. The airline has a ground time in Colombo of 1 hour and 25 minutes. This will be a turnaround flight for the crew, which means the same crew that operate the inbound flight will take the flight back to Singapore.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We would now like to invite Singapore Airlines VPS Club members and business class passengers to board through door 1 at the Aero Bridge at your convenience. All other passengers are kindly requested to remain seated. Singapore Airlines wishes all customers a pleasant flight.
After we were welcomed with the inimitable politeness of the Singapore Airlines crew, I was pointed towards seat 58A. Now, Singapore Airlines claims that their economy class seats are designed to be uplifting in every way. So let's have a comprehensive look at what you can expect to find at your seat. Now, the first thing you notice is that the seats are finished with contrasting grey and blue to match the sophisticated cabin interior. I secured an extra legroom seat for tonight's flight, but the standard seat pitch is 32 inches. Your seat also features a USB charging port and personalized air conditioning vents that are located 2 in between every 3 seats. And finally, an adjustable headrest. As part of the boarding/pre-departure service, you also get a hot towel service that's a far cry from anything you could find in Australia.
Singapore 469 service to Singapore. So we're ready for our pushback and should be on our way within the next 5 minutes. Looking at a flight time of 3 hours and 35 minutes. But that's generally fine, expecting periods of like moderate turbulence en route to Singapore and otherwise most of the other flight details can be obtained from your flight hub channel available in the flight system. With me in the flight net, First Officer I&II and in charge of the cabin is the flight manager Bobby. Just trying to descend, I'll be coming back with the latest weather for arrival into Singapore and we'll have an update on that.
Once airborne, my first order of business was to check out the plane's Wi-Fi connection. Now, Singapore Airlines Wi-Fi is provided to its customers free of charge as long as you have a KrisFlyer account, and if you don't have one, you can always sign up for free. I am pleased to report today that the Wi-Fi does in fact work. Now, Singapore Airlines operates the KrisWorld entertainment system. KrisWorld in itself has come a long way since its introduction. Way back then, KrisWorld was used for audio and video on demand, but today KrisWorld has become so much more. In addition to the usual TV shows and music, you can also access live television, a wellness library, the entire Singapore Airlines soundtrack, and the Inflight shopping catalogue. Now here's where the service got staggered. Normally on this flight, and yes, I've taken it a fair few times, the meal service begins almost immediately after takeoff. It's deliberately designed this way so that as soon as passengers finish eating, they can switch off the lights and let the passengers rest. However, that wasn't the case today, unfortunately. The seatbelt sign stayed on for 1 hour and 3 minutes after departure, and the crew had to stay strapped in. Now eventually the cabin lights came on and I saw the crew practically disappear from their stations and sprint towards the back to start the in-flight service. At this point, they had a little bit over 2 hours to wrap everything up. However, most of the passengers today opted to sleep, which sped things up. The crew came up to me and ever so politely asked, "Excuse me sir, would you like to try today's special, the fish, or would you like to have the chicken instead?" I asked for the fish and she said, "Do you mind that the fish is a little bit spicy?" And I said that's absolutely fine. For the entree, we have a Thai papaya salad with shrimp. Normally not a hardcore seafood enjoyer at 38,000 feet, I thought why not mix things up today, and I'm glad I did. To me, this was the highlight of the entire meal service. I absolutely loved the shrimp salad and it was fantastic, perfect balance of salty and sour. Now for the main course, we've got deviled fish with beetroot curry and fried rice. Now as far as fried rice goes, this isn't what you'd expect if you're used to what fried rice normally looks like at your average Asian takeout. I'd say this was more of a steamed rice with some carrot shavings. The deviled fish itself was simply amazing and the beetroot curry was quite tasty too. I'm really not sure why they introduced this to me as the spicy option, because it really wasn't spicy at all, unless perhaps you compared it to its whitewashed counterpart this evening. Overall, I was extremely satisfied. For dessert, we have an opera cake. Now it's actually called an opera cake because it's laid much like an opera theatre is. I had to look that up because when I first saw it on the menu, I had several questions. Overall, however, I was well fed and satisfied with this flight's offering. Now, the Singapore Airlines product has always been marketed as the benchmark in the industry, but it's actually the cabin crew that allows Singapore Airlines to compete in the big leagues with Qatar and Emirates. Today's flight was hardly an exception. The staff were practically falling at the feet of the passengers, even kneeling in some of their interactions, something that's quintessentially Asian. I do take a lot of sympathy on crew that operate this flight in particular. Red eye, turnaround, and minimal rest means cabin crew aren't exactly stoked when they see CMB on their roster. I took a box of Lindt chocolates to the back of the galley and handed it over to the lead steward to thank him for all their hard work. He profusely thanked me, and I went back to my seat hoping to catch some rest. Now, about halfway into dozing off, a flight steward came to my seat and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Nilesh, thank you so much for the chocolates. We organized this business class dessert for you. We hope you enjoy." Definitely wasn't expecting this, but thank you so much, guys. I was honestly speechless. So here we go. Pecan pie with strawberry and cream, deleted in 2 minutes, and was my second dessert for the flight. I was so taken back by their thoughtful gesture, and even when he came to clear the tray, he asked if I had enjoyed it. The economy class lavatory features soap, a sink dispensing hot and cold water, mouthwash cups, toothbrushes, and full-length mirrors perfect for those Instagram selfies. All in all, cleaned and maintained very well.
Arrival. Updated weather is like the overcast conditions. So this temperature 28 degrees Celsius. Winds are like a variable this time of the morning. We are scheduled at 7:20 a.m. and barring any ATC delays, we should be touching out just about 7:05. Close to a 5 minutes taxi to our stands at Terminal 3. Our program now at our destination is 6:28 a.m. Wednesday morning. If not, hope you enjoyed the flight today. Yeah, the rest of the crew would like to thank you very much for choosing Singapore Airlines. Wish you a very pleasant day here. Get prepared for our please. Thank you.
As dawn broke over the Straits of Malacca, the flight was now coming to an end, and with that it's time to reflect on today's flight. From the very early onset at Colombo, I figured this was going to be an excellent flight experience. Check-in was much better than I had expected. The aircraft cleanliness was impeccable. The food, mouth-watering Sri Lankan delicacies on a Singaporean airline, need I say more? Finally, with the top-notch excellent service by the cabin crew and the in-flight entertainment being abundant, there is very little to critique on today's flight. Stay tuned to the end of this video to find out how the airline scored overall out of 25 points across 5 categories. You can also head to the description for information relating to the flight, including how much I paid for it, and while you're down there, do me a huge favor and subscribe. It's absolutely free of charge. You can also access my content on TikTok and Instagram. Let's get on with the landing. So how did Singapore Airlines perform on this short hop to Singapore? The crew were simply fantastic, and I like the sophisticated and detail-oriented nature of their service. The catering and the in-flight entertainment system are the other two big winners for today's flight. On the flip end of the spectrum, and I had to think long and hard for this one, I realized the one thing I haven't really talked too much about is the earpieces that the airline provides you with. Now, they're quite flimsy, and I think you're better off just bringing your own. In conclusion, this is the total for today's flight. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in another trip report.